I want to show how to make some bath bombs like this one. This one's been dry for a while. They don't take very long to set though. A couple of days and you can handle them. And you can set them down without worrying that you're going to knock a piece off. You just don't want to drop them on the floor. If you drop them, they're going to crack and crumble. Pieces will come off of them. But if your mixture is right, then you'll be able to handle them without worrying about breaking them and without them getting too brittle. So I want to show my little setup here. I have a piece of wax paper just rolled out. Here's my roll. I didn't even cut it off the roll, so that way I don't get a bunch of crumbs all over my workspace here. I have all my ingredients out. So my 5 major ingredients I've got right here in these little containers. I have them all labeled. I've got my coconut oil, and it doesn't have to be coconut oil. It can really be any oil. Just anything that's greasy. You could even use Crisco. Doesn't matter. Coconut oil just sounds fancy, and some people like the smell of it if you're going for something more natural. I've got cornstarch. I've got baking soda. So far all this stuff is pretty easy to find in the store. The next one that is not too hard to find in the store is the Epsom salt. You could find that in Walmart. I think even Dollar Store has it. Dollar Store has a scented one though. If that might alter what you're trying to do with your bath bombs. So if you want it to be unscented, go to Walmart for that. And then the one that's a little more difficult to find is this right here, citric acid. But you can find it. Health food stores have it. Also, I've found it before with the canning at Walmart. They have it with all of the canning supplies, with the jars, the mason jars, and things like that. So you could find it there if you're looking for just a small container of it. Or you can buy it online. They sell big bags of it too if you're making a whole lot of these. I think I want to start by saying it's a good idea to label all of your containers, because 4 of your ingredients, or well, I'll say 3 of your ingredients, the cornstarch, the baking soda, and the citric acid, all look very similar. So if you open the top, you could easily confuse this for another one. So if you don't have a label and you don't make sure that you're putting the lids on the right ones when you open them and close them up again, you could get them confused. Baking soda really does look a lot like citric acid. You can just sniff the citric acid though. It has a really strong smell. It'll almost burn your nose if you get too close. So that would be one way to tell if you get them confused. Just smell it, and if it smells really strong and citrusy, that's your citric acid. So I'll show how to mix all this together. For the coconut oil, you want it melted, so I just have a little bit in a cup here, already melted, because it's chunky and solid when it's room temperature. So you want to microwave that for about 30 seconds. I've got about a teaspoon, maybe a little more in that little container. Now, the first time I made bath bombs, I was really intimidated by it, and I felt like it was so scientific. If I got some of the mixtures wrong, I was going to mess it up. And that's true to an extent, but I also know that if you try to follow a recipe, and you find a recipe online for the bath bombs, there are so many different kinds, different recipes that tell you different ratios, and they don't all work for everybody, because sometimes the humidity is different where you are. Sometimes you might have gotten a little too much of one ingredient, a little less of another. So just play with it, and once you learn how it should feel before you set it in your mold, you'll be able to figure out if you have the right mixture, and you can play with the different amounts of different ingredients to see if you like it better with a little more Epsom salts, or maybe you like it with more of the cornstarch so it holds together and it's a little more dry, or however you like that. So I have a mixing bowl here. I have a spoon and a measuring cup that goes to a 1/4 cup and a 1/2 cup. So that's what I'll be using. I'm going to start with baking soda. I'm going to do a 1/2 cup of baking soda and a 1/4 cup of the others. We're using 4 things right now, so let me get that started. I'm also wearing gloves, but not because this stuff is going to kill me if I get it on my skin. It's not going to burn me. There's no crazy chemical reaction that's going to happen here. Really not until you drop the bath bomb into the water is when you hear it start to fizz, and a little bit when we add the water to the mixture. But I'm wearing gloves just because it's something like this that could be used by someone else. For one, I don't want to use my bare hands on something, just like you wouldn't want to use your bare hands if you're going to be, touching food that you're preparing for someone else. But also, I don't really want to get all this all over my hands, because when I get to the coloring and the oils, I just don't want to get all of that messy stuff all over me. So I use gloves. I say stir it slowly, because when you start to stir it, a whole cloud of dust will come up from your citric acid. You'll start coughing, and it's just not very fun to breathe it in. So if you stir it slowly, then you won't have a whole bunch of dust in the air that you're going to be breathing in. All right, so after you've got that, I put in the oil. So right now I have in the bowl my 4 dry ingredients. I've got the roughly 1 tablespoon of coconut oil in there. It kind of started clumping up, almost like when you mix butter into cookie dough. I started to kind of chop at those little clumps with my spoon so I could break them up and spread that out, and so it's covering more surface in there. And I threw in some of the scent. I have a whole bunch of these fragrances, all these essential oils, and I just picked one that I liked for this one. I did the honey almond, and I didn't count. If you look at these recipes online, they'll tell you use 14 or 15 drops of oil, and you're sitting there trying to count them and losing count, and sometimes when you go to shake the bottle, it'll give you 2 or 3 drops at one time, and it all happens so fast it's hard to know what's going on. So don't try to count them. Just shake it until it seems like you've got roughly 15, 14, 17, something like that. Just don't pour half the bottle or anything, or this will smell really strong, unless you really like the scent. All right, so I'm about to add the water, and it will start to sizzle. So when you pour the water, you have to be ready to stir it quick, and that's when it's nice to have gloves on, because if you want to, you can get in there and start working it with your hands. And so I have gloves in case I want to do that, and usually I do prefer that, but I'm going to use the spoon first, and then I'll come in after that and chop it all up in little bits with my hands. So let's pour this in, and you'll see how it starts to fizz. It starts to react, but you just don't let it completely fizz out. You start to stir it in, and then you'll be able to spread that liquid out through the whole thing. All right, there. Makes a little noise, and it's cool to watch, and you want to see what happens, and you want to keep watching, but you have to work it in, or else it might mess with your batch, and the liquid might not be able to get mixed in properly. All right, so people say that when you mix your bath bomb ingredients, it should feel like the texture of beach sand. So it should feel kind of wet, like it can stick together when you squeeze it. It should feel cold. Once you put the water in, it gets really cold. And it should kind of be moldable while it's in here. You should be able to kind of squeeze it together and have a something you can build up, almost like you're making a sandcastle. But not to where if you tap it gently, it's going to crumble. So right now I can hold it in my hand and form it into a ball. But if I tap some of these little edges, they do kind of crumble. This would be okay. This sort of mixture would be okay because I can hold it in my hand and set it down. I'm not squeezing it, but I can pick it up and hold it and apply a gentle amount of pressure. And that's okay. So I think this mixture would work fine. And also know that when you put your coloring in, that's more liquid. So when you put your food coloring in, unless you're using some kind of powder dye, which you could use, but I always use the gels, that's going to add more liquid to your mixture. And so it will sort of start to form it together a little bit more. So I think if I leave it just like this, it feels like I have a lot of loose pieces. I don't feel any clumps, so that means all the liquid and the oil is mixed in well, but you can sort of go through and feel it between your fingers to get all those pieces loosened up. You can add glitter at this point if you wanted to. I like to add the glitter at the end, and I'll show how I do that. But let's go ahead and put some coloring into this and then mix it up. I'm going to do some pink in this. And in case you want to do another color, you can have a bowl handy where you can take out, at this point, you can take out some of the white, put it into a bowl, and it can become a different color. So do that if you like, and the rest of this batch can be a different color. So we'll do that. We'll take some of it out. Also want to mention that you can't save this stuff. You can't get to this point, set it aside, and then say, I'll just finish tomorrow, because tomorrow this is going to be dry and it's not going to be able to form together like you need it to for your molds. So use it right away. Even if you walk away for a few minutes and come back to it, you might find that it's starting to get a little crusty. So don't leave it. Work with it fast. I'm just going to I have these squeeze gels here. They're food coloring. You can use liquid food coloring, but just be careful about how much you put in. The gels are a form of liquid, but not as much as the droppers, those little food colorings you get in the store. This is where I don't really like to use my spoon because I don't want to get gel all over my spoon. I'm going to use my hands to get right in there and dig around until that color gets all over and disperses nicely throughout the whole batch. My pink is thoroughly mixed in. I don't see any spots of red in there. I see solid pink throughout the whole thing, and that's the color I wanted. Be aware that sometimes your colors can fade over time, and other times your colors can get a little darker. It just sort of depends on the coloring you're using. These gels tend to get darker over time. So like the first one I showed in the beginning, the purple bath bomb, this was not as dark when it was first made, but after sitting around, the pigments in that coloring really start to set in, and you'll see a much darker color when you come back to it, especially with the reds and blacks. I have a cookie sheet right here that I'm going to be putting my bath bombs onto once they're set. And I want to show a couple different kinds of molds. So, let's see. These are the typical bath bomb molds that you can buy online. They're a little pricey though, and I don't really like them as well as some other molds. But they're just, I don't know if that's aluminum. I guess they're made of aluminum or stainless steel. And you would just you'd pile all of your mixture inside, and then you would close this other side of it onto the top, twist them together, and then you'd open it up and have the idea is you'd have a perfect sphere. But a lot of times there'll be an air pocket inside when you open it, and then your sphere will crumble, or sometimes it will stick inside the mold if you have a little too much liquid in your batch. So these are, for me, a little bit hit or miss, especially if you're working with kids who are having a hard time getting them out of there. It doesn't give at all. So if you go to squeeze the side to pop your bath bomb out, it doesn't give. You're better off just leaving it in there, letting it dry, and then coming back to it another day to pop it off. But where's the fun in that? You want to be able to open it up and see the product of your work. So these, to me, I like to show these off as this is an option. If you like these, for me, I want to use something that lets me get my bath bomb out right away. Here's another option. This is a Christmas ornament. Those little plastic ones that open up so you can put something inside. It's got that little tab at the top. But what I like about using these is, for one, it's clear, so I can see if I have any holes in there. I know if I need to pack it in a little bit more. So you could pile it on and get yourself a nice full container of that, and you can flip it over and just kind of see, did I get it everywhere I needed to get it? And when you pop it out, you could just give it a gentle little squeeze, and you've got a nice little half circle, or you could put them together and make a full sphere with it. I'm just going to drop that back in because I don't want to make them circular. But that's one option. I like that it's got that. It has a little bit of give there. You can squeeze it to get your bath bomb out if you squeeze it gently. So there's those couple different kinds. One thing that I thought I would try is I thought I want a heart-shaped bath bomb, but they don't make bath bomb molds shaped like a heart. But wait, I have a whole bunch of cookie cutters, and so I think if you were using a cookie cutter that had a lot of corners and edges, don't try that because you're not going to be able to poke your bath bomb out gently. But I found that with a shape like this, it's basic enough and it's got, not a whole lot of angles and curves in here, so you're able to pop it right out. So I'm going to set this mold right inside and then pile all of my mixture inside. Really pack it in, and then I will show how you just gently pop it out and it will release onto our baking sheet. I know it kind of looked like I was being a little rough with it as I was trying to squeeze it out of the mold, but I was actually being very gentle and also being aware that my hand that was holding underneath the underside of it, I wasn't pressing into it or gripping it too hard. I pressed some of that glitter onto it while it was still in the mold, and I'm just holding it gently so that it holds together. It has a nice crisp edge, and if you want to knock some of these little edges off, you can. Just kind of tap them off while you're holding it over the bowl, and then just gently set it down on the cookie sheet or whatever you're setting it on so it can dry. These are just so cute and easy to do. I like to put the glitter on there, but also if you wanted to write a message or do any designs with a paintbrush and some watered down food coloring, you could do that, but I just would not put any glitter at that point because you don't want to paint over the glitter and then a piece of glitter falls off and you're missing a part of your letter. So you could mix glitter right into the batch if that was what you wanted to do. To store these guys, just give them a couple of days to dry out completely. If you want, after a day, you can take it, flip it over and let the underside of it dry out, because if it's touching the pan, the bottom could stay a little bit wet and it could take a little longer for the bottom part of it to dry. But if you're giving it as a gift, just put it into a little cellophane bag and twist the top up to keep the scent in there. Definitely wouldn't recommend leaving them out for too long because your scent will start to dissipate and you won't smell that nice honey almond scent anymore. Or if you're ready to just use it right away, you can drop it right into the bathtub and you'll get to see it fizz all over the place like crazy. They're really fun and they're easy. Just try to play around a little bit with the recipe, and if you've tried it before and it feels like it gets too sticky or it falls apart, just play with the amount of liquid that you're putting into it to see what works out best for you. And you should be able to adjust just a couple little things and tweak it here and there, and it should work out just fine for you.